be evaluating Mark first, and I'm evaluating him on vocal variety, eye contact, and gestures. So first of all, I want to comment on some things that you excelled in. I loved how you had the PowerPoint and your pictures of your friends and your family. That was very personal. And I loved how you're professionally dressed for your topic. And I know that it was very hard for you to speak on this topic with a friend of yours dying and a friend now, one died. So that is something I really want to compliment you on, is that you got up there. You did it. Sometimes we have to face those fears, and the most important part is just getting up there and speaking. And I think after I do a speech too, is after I'm done, and especially if it's a personal one, you're sharing your heart, and that's what you did, is you shared part of your heart with us, so thank you very much. And you gave us some education on the end of life options. I wasn't really aware of the medication part, so thank you for that. For vocal variety, I had given you a 3 on it. I know you're soft-spoken, I'm soft-spoken too, and a lot of times I'm soft-spoken, but I start to speak, and sometimes when I speak later, then I get back into the speaking very soft. But we have to remember that this is a big room, and just to raise your voice a little bit more. But at the beginning, you were a little bit soft-spoken, but as you started doing your speech, your vocal variety, your voice got stronger. And when you emphasized the points that you were going to speak about. And as for eye contact, what I would do is you look to the left, to the middle, to the right, but give eye contact, even if you can just go around the room and look at people. Give them eye contact a little bit more on that. I know it was hard to do. And gestures, so just at first you were clasping your hands, but then you got more comfortable, and as you were holding the pointer thing, you held it with purpose, and I thought you did really well with that. So what I wanted to do is give you some things to maybe work on. Just kind of work on the clasping of the hands and your eye contact. What you could do is what I do is I practice my speech in a mirror. And so I just stand in front of the mirror, and maybe you could practice with doing the eye contact. Just practice in the mirror a little bit more, and then focus on your gestures a little bit more too. Like, just be free, and maybe even act like we're all children. Children really don't care. Sometimes children they'll start talking if you don't get their attention, but you got all of our attention when you were speaking about this topic, and it was a very hard topic. So I just really want to thank you very much for sharing part of your heart with us. And now we're going to have Jamie.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your speech. My focus is audience awareness and how you apply it to the audience. And the biggest thing with that is the audience knows what you're going to talk about and can take in the message that you're sharing. She's going to talk about the message, but I'm going to talk about how you made that able for the audience to take in. So I first of all want to say how I appreciated you took a step back and told us there was a little bit of setup. That way we weren't wondering what you were doing or when you were going to start, and you knew exactly what needed to be set up. You asked Keith to turn the lights down so we could see your slides, and you turned the slides out pretty smooth, easy, everyone knew what was going on. And then you came into a very confident, collected intro without any awkwardness, which honestly does not happen often when you have slides, and you did it. You came in saying that this was an essence speech for you. This is the first speech for Saturday Morning Live. Sorry, Mason. First speech for Saturday Morning Live. You tend to be uncomfortable, but you were perfectly calm and collected. This was clearly something that, even though it's difficult to talk about, you were comfortable and confident talking about it, which is very important because how many people need to hear this message and would rather hear it from you than in the moment when it's urgent for them to pick it up. So that was amazing. With the intro, you got us thinking. You had that perfect question, let's talk about. And then you got us thinking and interacting. Everyone was at the front of their seats, leaning in, sharing things, and laughing. You got us laughing during a difficult speech, which was awesome. And then you told us exactly what you were going to talk about, death. It was very abrupt, everyone kind of took a step back and a deep breath, and then you stopped and eased us into it with those pictures and your stories. And I always tell people when they're sharing for marketing on social media, share pictures of kids and puppies. That's what people want to know. They want to know what's important to you. And that's what you shared with us. You didn't share us facts or money. You shared what's important to you, who is important to you, what's your life like. And I thought that was a really good way to ease us in to something that otherwise we would have a hard time taking in. And then you started sharing some stories. You had great pictures, great easy to follow slides. I felt the slides enhanced the speech. They didn't drive the speech, you had your speech, and then the slides really made it come alive. Keywords in there, pictures, illustrations. I liked whenever you had a story about someone, you had their picture there. I relate well to that, and I think a lot of people do. You see the person, you hear about the person, you hear their story, and then you give the facts afterwards. And I thought that was a very impactful way to help us take in the message and take in the facts that we needed to know. You also had a message that it really stuck with me. She was scared for herself, scared for her family. For someone where right now, I don't need this. At some point in my life I will, and I have needed in the past. That stuck out to me where I can understand when someone's going through that, what they're going through. And then when you started talking about the, is it medically aided death? I can't remember the term, but we were able to take that in because now we understood why it's important because of that one critical phrase. The one critique I have is with the slides. You had a well-prepared deck. It was very good, very easy, key points. You didn't need to know that it was there. It was going to be there. Don't feel like you need to check the slides. And there was one place when you were talking about Brittany's story where you had to actually read off the slides. If you don't have all the points, we don't care because we learned about Brittany. And if you had a couple of those key points, we could understand. But that's the one place where you took away from the audience. You weren't talking with us, you were reading a slide. But overall, I want to close with a sincere thank you very much for sharing this story. I know I will need this at some point in my life, and I know if I had this when my grandparents were passing away, I would understand and been a little more mature and able to take in more and have more time with my grandparents who were important to me. So thank you for having that confidence and sharing those personal stories. I appreciate it.
And I also want to say thank you, Mark. We spend our lives separating life and death. Ben Franklin said that the only two things that are sure in life are death and taxes. So, he established that these things go together. But we spend our lives disestablishing it, separating it. We refuse to recognize the death. We focus on life. And I believe that what your speech does is it's the example of anti-disestablishmentarianism, where you say that life and death are entwined. There is not one without the other. And my focus was to be on your message, and that was your message, that death is an integral part of life, and we have to prepare for it properly. Your message was very tightly focused. Your message about preparing for your own death was not about the emotions of death. It was not about the property and the estate and what comes of that. Your messages were about the communications. Communications is what Toastmasters is about, and that signed paperwork before you pass, before you are beyond the point where you can communicate your needs. How do you communicate when you can't communicate? You prepare in advance. And that was one part of that tightly focused message was communicate. The other part was self-determination. What I choose for my life is what I choose for my life. I'm going to be in charge of my life as best I can. So how do I do that? I take charge of my death. And I believe that you laid out the legal qualifications for being allowed to make that decision, being put in the position where you could legally make that decision. And again, you separated it from the emotions and from the property and the estate and just focused on that. What are my qualifications to be able to be self-determined about my own death? And you also brought that into the personal for us with those wonderful photographs and stories. We have each lost people. We probably have someone in our life now who is struggling, and we know that they will not be here forever. And now you have brought very clearly to us, we all face our own mortality sooner or later. It's how we face it is part of who we are. And I believe that you also brought into focus that this is going to be something Minnesotans are going to have to talk about. It's part of our duty as citizens. It's going to be a huge public debate. I think the only improvement could have been if you would have said to our group, if you're interested, I have some resources for you. I know you have resources. That was your final slide, and I probably imagine that you have some handouts you could give some people, but that would have been the only improvement that I could offer, was to make sure that you let people know they can come to you. So again, I have to say that it was a tightly focused message about communication and about self-determination, and it was wonderfully dealt.
And now we have a minute for you to speak.
Thanks for those, that feedback, I really appreciate it. And Barbara, you just mentioned about the resources, that's what I forgot to say. Mary Ann, my friend, she knew I was doing this, and she gave me a bag full of like brochures and things. So I have those, if anyone wants a brochure, I have those resources. And so this speech, a few days ago, I was pretty panicky about it. It was just a recently written speech. But as I came, in the last 24 hours, and it's coming together a little better, I'm thinking, Mark, just try to focus on the message, what you're talking about. Try not to worry about, being a good Toastmaster and all that stuff. So that helped me, and it just helped me because I know Mary Ann, and it's so important to her, and so I just feel good. I feel good. I presented it, and it's something that it's under debate. Not everyone supports this, but I'm bringing awareness to the issue, and a lot of people want it. So it's giving them the choice. And Mary Ann herself doesn't know if she'd ever even use it. She just wants the option. She believes in that. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mark. And now we have 2 minutes for the audience. Anyone want to comment? Yes, Leo?
Great topic, Mark, thank you for that. Just on to speak on some of the technique, you were pacing back and forth, and that was a challenge for me, at least initially, taking away from you.
Pat?
So I thought you did a great job. I don't know if you knew, one of our past members, Joe's name? Joe Sharp, yeah.
Sharp.
No, he gave a number of speeches to our club about planning for death and during life, and sort of not exactly the same message, but sort of informational. And I thought, in essence, you combine informational with stories that were really paramount to the message. So I thought that was really well done.
Mark, one of the things I was most impressed about your speech today was what you commented on, how you were panicky a couple days ago, and today I wrote in my comments, this was the most calm, powerful, and in control I've seen you as a speaker. So the takeaway, I think, for all of us is when we connect emotionally to a story, and it's not just facts, or it's not just like, forget Toastmasters body language and voice dynamics and all that. When we really work to communicate the passion behind our message, you do wonderfully. We do wonderfully. So I wanted to make sure to mention that to you.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that, for me as an audience member, your the on-screen presentation was great, except there were times when you were clipping through it so quickly that you couldn't absorb that portion of the information. And so if it's worth being on the screen, it's worth having up there for the appropriate amount of time. So either pare it down or keep that information on there longer.
Thank you, our time is up.